And Marina's here, isn't she?
Yes.
I was going to say she was at a meeting with me just now.
Outside having a break.
Oh, right, that's right. Just yeah. Here they are.
Perfect timing.
Thank you for attending. And just to say, here we are. So I'll just say I don't believe we've got any apologies. Is
Everyone is here.
okay? Is Michael coming along in a moment? I assume.
In traffic.
Good. Well, okay. Proving a point. So, are you agreed that I sign the minutes of the 4th of February of this year? Thank you. Declarations of interest, please think about that. And yes, and item 4 is the exclusion of the press and public. I don't know what I've done with my. There it is. My normal script. Is before I start, can I remind all attendees, please can all mobile phones be kept to silent or turn them off during the meeting where possible. There we are. There are no fire alarms. Plans for in the event of a fire, please make your way out of the room and follow a member of staff to the evacuation point on Southern Hay Green at the Blitz Tree. After the officers introduce the report, I will invite questions and comments from executive members, and then I will invite opposition members to make any comments they would like the executive to consider in our decision making. Where there are questions, I will ask a portfolio holder or an officer to respond. As usual, if answers cannot be provided at the meeting, we will circulate them after the meeting. We will then confirm the recommendations from the report and move to the vote. Please also note that for any items which have already been considered and debated at other committees, I ask members not to repeat the same questions which have already been answered at those committees, or if they are waiting for an answer outside of that committee. Thank you. So we'll move on, as I say, to item 4, which there are no part 2 items. There are no questions from members of the public. And so I'm now moving on to item 6, which is the Lord Mayoralty. And I believe this is where we nominate. And we would like to nominate for the Lord Mayor for the ensuing year, Councillor Anne Jobson, and the proposed Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Gemma Rollestone. So I'll move those from the chair. Okay, all those in favour?
Yes.
And I feel sure.
That's unanimously agreed.
Good, thank you. One volunteer is worth many pressed people. Thank you very much for doing that, and I hope you enjoy the year, and you'll be at meetings and we'll talk about what's happening very soon. Councillor, thank you.
Thank you for all your confidence.
Yes, I've no doubt. Thank you. I'll now move on to item 7 of the pack, and this is the Scrutiny Programme Board report. And here we have one recommendation where we received the report and we receive it, and then we obviously send it to council as well. Now, is it Councillor Matt Williams to introduce it, or is there an officer going to?
That's Councillor Williams, the chair of the Scrutiny Programme.
Come on then, Councillor Matt Williams. Tell us all about what you've been up to and your report here. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. You'll have seen from the report in your packs, I have presented this at both Customer Focus and the Strategic Scrutiny Committees and invited questions from members there. One of the things, obviously, although not authored and forwarded by me, one of the things that various suggestions we wanted to try and do was ensure that the Scrutiny Programme Board annual report now aligns very much with the municipal year rather than the calendar year, to avoid precisely scenarios like this where one chair of the board ends up reporting on something about which they essentially knew something, or in some cases potentially even before they were elected, so we've avoided that particular thing. So you'll see this report, the number of items that were looked at throughout that particular year. And obviously, when I finish speaking, I'm very happy to take questions on that. One of the things I also like to mention at the same time is under that we're always, as part of the programme, we're looking at ways in which we can improve this particular process, and in ways to do that taking forwards, namely the sort of one of the things that came up, because we are working very much cross-party in this particular respect, is showing the impact of the particular scrutiny in the item rather than just a list of items that were looked at. And we will be taking a further such session at our sort of next meeting, which is still to be decided, to be arranged, where we will sort of explore further options to that effect. So I think very much moving away from this particular format, although useful as it is, and always looking at ways we can sort of improve it, and showing sort of the real value that the scrutiny and the programme board, as well as how that all fits together and the value that's bringing to the work of the council as a whole. So my particular thanks to the officers in having not only prepared this report, but also suggested ways in which we can improve it, and obviously to members who have contributed to the scrutiny process throughout the year, and as I say, to make sure that we are very much pointing forwards in terms of our scrutiny progress and what we do. So I'm very happy, Chair, to take any questions you might have.
So I'll open it up to members of the executive for any comments or questions. Councillor Bizzard.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Williams. I don't feel like I want to ask any questions particularly, because I think this is very much for the scrutiny members. It's their brief. But what I would say is I think it's been excellent. There's always improvements, I know from previous experience as a scrutiny chair. So I just wanted to thank you and the two scrutiny chairs, the two scrutiny vice chairs. I know you work very well and very collaboratively. I know from memory that was it was cross-party and very collaborative in approach. So really just to thank you, and we're always happy to receive feedback, I think, as executive members as well. So it works both ways. So thanks.
Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Chair. It's not a question really. I just want to thank you for presenting the report, which, as you said, is sort of a year out of date now, really. And when I first looked at it, I realised there were some interesting things and people on there that are now no longer there. But one of my questions was about the time of it, but you've answered that already and cleared that up. Just to echo what Councillor Bizzard said, that the scrutiny process is very much improved. We know it's going well. We feel uncomfortable and challenged more often. So yeah, looking forward to that carrying on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody? Councillor Wood.
Thank you. And obviously echoing my colleagues' appreciation of the scrutiny process. Certainly, as portfolio holder, making presentations to the scrutiny committee is an opportunity really to present what the teams have done and have kind of interactive feedback on that, which is really useful. It's interesting actually with leisure, which is one of our largest sections, reporting to scrutiny, when most of what we do is public facing with customers. So there's a kind of interesting dynamic to that. But I noticed in the report you're talking about, and you mentioned that looking at the impact of the work. So what sort of metrics or measures would you be thinking about being able to apply to that?
Okay, hang on. Okay, so I like to wait till the end. You pick that one up at the end.
So if there's no other members of the executive, I'll ask the opposition members. Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you very much for coming to present the report. And we do very much appreciate the collaborative approach that you take to scrutiny. That's really welcome. I think there is an interesting point to be made that the executive might wish to consider. It's not about scrutiny operating in its own little orbit and the executive operating in its own little orbit. And I hope that the relationship will increase and improve over time. So I've been a councillor for 6 years, and it's only recently that formal recommendations have been brought to this committee, and I hope to see more of those. We have some very interesting discussions at scrutiny, and I very much support the idea of broadcasting scrutiny. It's a very great opportunity for members of the public to hear the discussions that I've had, and the council's already talked about being, accounting for their work, and that's really important. So like to know when that might be happening, please. Thank you.
Well, I'll let Matt, and then we'll come on to that. Matt, if you can answer the couple of questions there that are being posed to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you to Councillors Vizard and Wright for your kind words. I should also, it was remiss of me not to do so. I should have thanked the chairs and the vice chairs as well, Councillor Vizard as you, because it is truly a team effort on that particular front, and also Councillor Alcock for her work in actually compiling and providing the forwards for this particular report. So thank you to all them. Councillor Wood, your question, I think that's something that very much is not completely finalised, but it's something that we will be discussing as a programme board, because that's something that has come up as a definite goal of the this sort of scrutiny programme board to actually show that, and the report adequately shows that. Perhaps the route to get there is not completely well defined at the moment, but it's something that we were looking and considering very, very carefully, because, as I say, we've identified that we want it. It's something that needs to be shown. It's a question of how, and I think you obviously having you don't have this particular expression, Councillor, but having skin in the game on both sides, because given that your portfolio does extend quite a way, that would be a key question for us to answer. And then, Councillor Moore, I think perhaps not perhaps for the more better address to the executive rather than me to have to answer that point about broadcasting. I shall let the chair deal with that. But thank you for your kind words about the process nonetheless.
Thank you, Councillor. I know Councillor Wright can help us here on this.
Thank you. The question about filming scrutiny was one that I was asked at one of the scrutiny committee meetings, perhaps by yourself, Councillor Moore, probably, when I did my portfolio holder report. I apologise because I did say I would get back to you, and I didn't get back to you. But I've raised it with the head of service for digital, and can't answer at the moment. What he's trying to do is to work through the process of how things are going to be live streamed with the new AV equipment, which isn't fully on board yet. Then after that, it would have to be going back to Democratic Services and to comms team as well, because to work out the strains or otherwise on staffing. But it is being looked into. So the first step is to see if the technology is there to do that.
Okay.
First.
Right. Well, let's get back to the report then, and the report and the recommendation. Well, it's not a recommendation. We're now being asked to receive the scrutiny, and also to move it to council for them to receive it. So I'm going to move that from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair. That has been carried.
Thank you again, Matt. So we now move on to agenda item 8. This is the parking tariffs report for 2024, and I've got Victoria Hatfield, who's going to talk us through the report, and we've also got Dave here as well. Victoria.
So this is the report to executive. Thank you. Report to executive confirming the parking places order proposal and to what we are going to progress with. And it's just to highlight that the main change from the original proposal is that we're not looking to implement an increase in parking charges for the 2024 parking places order. Only a selection of proposals are recommended to progress with, and this is primarily to address the difficult trading conditions within the city centre. So going forward, the proposals are to reduce Sunday city centre car park charging by 25% in central Zone 1 and Zone 2 car parks. And this change is about helping to address the business and economic challenges within the city centre, and Sunday remains the quietest day from a car parking and from a footfall point of view, with Saturday being the busiest. And this change is looking to encourage visitors and shoppers to visit the city on a Sunday and to reduce that peak congestion and usage on a Saturday. The second is to reintroduce the 1 hour parking for city centre car parks located in Zone 2. And again, this was more around from the discussions with the business community in how this recommendation supports the city centre economy and to enable business customers to attend appointments for those that shop online for click and collect. There was strong support from the public consultation as well as feedback from the business community and customers of the car park. The next is to amend the opening and closing hours of John Lewis multi-storey car park from 8 a.m. till midnight. And this recommendation is about how it supports the evening and nighttime economy in a large multi-storey car park being open and accessible. And there was all strong support from the public consultation for this recommendation. It's also to add 2 new car parks to the parking places order. And this is around implementing parking charges at 2 sites, one being the Riverside Leisure Centre, and this is to ensure that users of the Riverside Leisure Centre is there for its intended customers, i.e. Exeter Leisure members, and everyone else will need to pay. And the reason for this change is the car park down at Exbridges, they've recently introduced parking charges, and so customers are now using Riverside Leisure Centre and it's not available for their customers. And the second one is around providing a temporary car park in the city centre. And this is to support with the transition of the closure of Mary Archer's car park. This one is due to close later this year. And that's a reduction of 445 spaces within the city centre. And the new car park is 47 spaces, so it'll be a loss of 398 spaces, but also taken into account, there's a reduction in the Triangle car park as well of 35 spaces from the works planned there. And finally, it's some changes around seasonal, residential and business permits as set out in this report. The changes to the tariffs will take approximately around about 6 weeks to implement, and that's working with Ringo and our pane display operators. But more significant works will take a little bit longer for Riverside and the temporary car park on the bus station. Any questions?
Thank you, Victoria. So open it up to the executive members. If you've got any comments or questions, please. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of questions, really. One relates to the Pinhole Railway Station car park. Very welcome that at this stage we don't feel it necessary to introduce charges there. But one of the issues we do have there is occasionally misuse of the car park. So now that it's been out to consultation, is it technically a car park and therefore we can enforce misuse of it, take action against people that park large vehicles in there and never move them, or even living cars there is another issue we've had. And the other one is about Riverside, which very much welcome. As you say, the adjacent car park is now chargeable, and therefore that car park is subject to misuse. Am I right? Is there any mechanism where the appropriate users, as in those using the Riverside Leisure Centre, are able to recoup the parking fees or not? Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your report, Victoria, very thorough. I'm just interested in what you were saying about the lower numbers using Sunday parking and the congestion on Saturday. Just wondered a little bit about the modelling that you used to work out, if you were going to be able to rebalance that or not, or whether we were really aiming to increase numbers on the Sunday and we'd still get the same numbers on Saturday.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Are there any other questions from the councillors or executive members? No? Opposition members? And I see Councillor Moore wants to ask something.
Thank you. Just be interested in hearing from the executive about how you feel this report contributes to achieving the corporate plan objective. I'm looking at the one about nudging customers to park outside of the immediate city centre and travel into the city by alternative, active or sustainable travel means, which is one of the goals in the corporate plan. At the moment, the report, I'm afraid, sounds like it's a bit like a sat-nav that needs a bit rebooting. I'm confused really on a number of points. So, for example, the John Lewis car park extended hours, fair enough, but the King Cathedral car park has just been unilaterally shut of an evening, so there doesn't seem to be some consistency. We, as you pointed out, we have a closed car park, so for much needed housing, but that's not happened. So we've got an abandoned car park which is not generating any income. But then we hear that these stalled proposals are going to have these proposals, they are going to have an impact almost £800,000 on the medium-term financial plan. So can we have some comment on that, please? So, and obviously we have, although there's fewer car parking spaces, we did recently buy a multi-storey car park. And in terms of achieving the goal of nudging customers, we're now seeing a reverse gear in terms of building a new car park, and that's apparently going to fund net zero work. However, I don't see in the recommendation any commitment for that to be ring-fenced. I would also like to know how much it costs to set up that new car park. You know, is that money going to come out of this net zero work in order to set up the car park, or is that going to be funded some other way? And as apparently it's a temporary car park, is this going to be temporary until 2030 or sometime sooner? And when will the promised consultation in relation to that? So I seem to think that we as a council have gone for a full circle, a bit run around about, from reducing the dominance of the car to playing bumper cars, because I don't see how this is going to tackle the issue of congestion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jobson. No, sorry. You've asked many questions there, Councillor Moore, some of which you're going to have to write to me about. I think it's you're making more, where this is about the car parking order, you're talking more about some policy and that stuff going forward. Interesting what you said about temporary. Just a little story here. I'll get into wax lyrical about some transport issues. The Exeter City Corporation ran the country services with Devon General on a temporary basis from 1952 up to about 2006. So I'm hoping our temporary won't be anything like that. Legitimate questions all about the cost of it. We will be picking all that up, but I need a little bit of detail and we will answer all those questions. That's not what this order is about. Here's some of the others about climate. They're all legitimate questions, but and I feel sure you'll get an opportunity at the full council meeting, but a little bit of advanced understanding of those questions will be able to give you those answers which you quite rightly deserve on those issues. So I hope that's helpful at the moment. So that's where we were. I'm not sure, there were a couple of things from Councillor Wood and Councillor Williams, if you could address those.
Thank you, Chair. So from Councillor Wood's question around Pinhole Railway Station, no, we won't be able to enforce because it won't be part of the parking places order. We can only enforce if it's included. The Riverside Leisure Centre, so Exeter Leisure members will be provided with a permit, so they won't need to pay. It's only non-Exeter Leisure members that will have to pay to use that car park. And for Councillor Williams' questions around the Sunday and Saturday, when we looked at the data, there's a real disparity in the number of people who come into the city and who park in the city as well. And we did some modelling as to what the impact would be. It's challenging to say it's going to be an exact figure because sometimes people are creatures of habit and they come into the city either on a Saturday or a Sunday and they want to park in a particular car park. We have adjusted some of the income targets associated with that, but it is very challenging to say it's going to result in a 20% shift from a Saturday to a Sunday. Okay.
On that point, we've got these series of recommendations here. So I'm going to move them from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous, Chair. That has been carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes the business for this evening. Very quick, and I'll see you all at the next meeting on the 1st of April. Thank you very much.